Question 29 of Prima Secunda takes a big turn because we've been talking about love as a passion for the last several days, and now we talk about the opposite concupiscible passion of love, which is hatred. And if you remember, there were 6 concupiscible passions and 5 of the irascible passions. Love, hatred, desire, aversion, joy, and sadness are the concupiscible, and the irascible are hope, despair, fear, daring, and anger. And so Thomas is going to go over each one of them specifically. And so we have covered love, which is the principal concupiscible passion, and now its opposite, which is hatred. And as I have said many times, St. Thomas Aquinas is a very, very optimistic philosopher. The whole world is governed by God, who is good, and all things are good, and being is good, and it's amazing how optimistic he is. So how is he going to handle hatred? And how is hatred related to goodness and to being and truth and all these kind of things? And those are the kind of questions that he's going to tackle in these 6 articles of question 29. Beginning with article number 1 says, whether evil is the cause and object of hatred. Now, you naturally would think, well, that's probably the case because you would hate something that's evil, but he's asking 2 things here, cause and object. And what he's going to end up saying is that it's the object of hatred, but it's not the cause. All right, so the cause is going to be something else, which we'll find out in article number 2. He says, with regard to the natural appetite, it is evident that just as each thing is naturally attuned and adapted to that which is suitable to it, wherein consists natural love, so has it a natural dissonance from that which opposes and destroys it. So we naturally desire good things, but when something seems to be in opposition to our good, then we oppose it, okay? And that's where we get hatred as the opposite concupiscible passion to love. And this is natural hatred. So therefore, in the animal appetite or in the intellectual appetite, love is a certain harmony of the appetite with that which is apprehended as suitable, while hatred is dissonance of the appetite from that which is apprehended and repugnant and hurtful. Now, just as whatever is suitable as such bears the aspect of good, so whatever is repugnant as such bears the aspect of evil, and therefore, just as good is the object of love, so is the evil is the object of hatred. Now, Thomas has already established that evil is just the absence of good, and so the object of hatred would be the absence of good, something that lacks goodness, which we are repulsed by and which we do not want. All right, so in article 2, now he's getting to, okay, the object is evil. Well, what's the cause? And he's going to say the cause of hatred is love. Now, this is a very interesting explanation. He says, love consists in a certain agreement of the lover with the object loved, as we talked about yesterday at quite length, while hatred consists in a certain disagreement or dissonance. Now, we should consider in each thing what agrees with it before that which disagrees. Now, since a thing disagrees with another through destroying or hindering that which agrees with it, consequently, love must needs precede hatred, and nothing is hated save through being contrary to a suitable thing which is loved, and hence it is that every hatred is caused by love. So if you think of something you hate death, you hate the person, whatever, the action of theft, and somebody stole something from you, it's all based on something you love. You hate death because you love your life, right? You might, hate somebody that, crashed into your car because you love your car. You love it in its pristine form, and you don't love it after it got into the accident. So you can kind of see that everything that we hate is going to be based in some way or another on love, which gets back to that optimism of St. Thomas Aquinas. Okay, which one is stronger? Is hatred stronger than love? Thomas says it's impossible for an effect to be stronger than its cause. Now, every hatred arises from some cause of love, as we already talked about. Therefore, it is impossible for hatred to be stronger than love absolutely. But furthermore, love must needs be, absolutely speaking, stronger than hatred, because a thing is moved to the end more strongly than to the means. Now, turning away from evil is directed as a means of gaining a good. So anytime you hate something, it's because, as we mentioned, you are, absolutely loving something else, right? And so that first impulse, that first thing that you love is going to be stronger than that which you hate. The soul's movement in respect of good is stronger than its movement in respect of evil. Nevertheless, hatred sometimes seems to be stronger than love for two reasons. First, because hatred is more keenly felt than love. For this reason, love is felt more keenly in the absence of the object love. As Augustine says, that love is felt more keenly when we lack what we love. And for the same reason, the unbecomingness of that which is hated is felt more keenly than the becomingness of that which is loved. All right, so that's one way that hatred could at least feel stronger than love. Secondly, because comparison is made between a hatred and a love which are not mutually corresponding, because according to different degrees of good, there are degrees of love to which correspond degrees of hatred. So he's saying there are degrees of love and degrees of hatred, and you might have a lesser love and a greater hatred that may seem to be greater because it's being compared to a lesser love. I think that's what he's getting at here. All right, now Article 4, interesting question. Can a man hate himself? Can this guy hate himself? Thomas says, properly speaking, it is impossible for a man to hate himself, for everything naturally desires good, nor can anyone desire anything for himself save under the aspect of good. Evil is outside the scope of the will. Remember, the will is always geared towards something good. Consequently, a man must of necessity love himself, and it is impossible for a man to hate himself, properly speaking. But accidentally, it happens that a man hates himself, and this is in two ways. And this is really interesting. He says, first, on the part of the good which a man wills for himself. For it happens sometimes that what is desired as good in some particular respect is simply evil, and in this way a man accidentally wills evil to himself and thus hates himself. And so a man wills to get drunk or take drugs, or in an extreme example, wills suicide. Well, he sees some good in those things, but they are inherently evil, but accidentally they're going to be good because there's something that he desires about them. Secondly, in regard to himself, to whom he wills good, it is clear that man is principally man is principally the mind of man, and it happens that some men account themselves as being principally that which they are in their material and sensitive nature, wherefore they love themselves according to what they take themselves to be, while they hate that which they really are by desiring what is contrary to reason. So again, this goes to more the hierarchy of the soul, where the reason and the will are higher, but if a man doesn't understand that he really is geared more towards his reason than his sensitive appetites, he doesn't understand himself, and so he can hate that portion of him that I guess is telling him not to do these things that he wants to do for his sensitive appetite. I think that's what he's getting at here. Article 5, whether a man can hate the truth. Okay, this is quite interesting. He says, good, true, and being are the same in reality. Good, true, and being are the same in reality, but differ as considered by reason. For good is considered in the light of something desirable, while being and true are not so considered, because good is what all things seek. Wherefore, good as such cannot be the object of hatred, neither in general nor in particular. So you can't, since you're always directed to the good, you can't hate something that you're desiring. You can't hate something that's good, so goodness can never be the object of hatred. Being and truth in general cannot be the object of hatred, because disagreement is the cause of hatred and agreement is the cause of love, while being and truth are common to all things. But nothing hinders some particular being or some particular truth from being an object of hatred, insofar as it is considered as hurtful and repugnant, since hurtfulness and repugnance are not incompatible with the notion of being and truth, but they are with a notion of good. Okay, hopefully this is making sense. Okay, thus, a man sometimes hates a particular truth when he wishes that which is true were not true. All right, so it's raining on the day you want to go on a picnic. Well, that's just a truth, but you can still hate it. You can hate that particular truth, or you can think of a lot of other examples that somebody hates something that is just true, but it doesn't mean you have to like it, right? Secondly, according as truth is in man's knowledge, which hinders him from gaining the object loved, such is the case of those who wish not to know the truth of faith, that they may sin freely. Okay, don't tell me the truth because I don't want to know it, because that means I would have to be bound to it by conscience. Thirdly, a particular truth is hated as being repugnant inasmuch as it is in the intellect of another man. For instance, when a man wishes to remain hidden in his sin, he hates that anyone should know the truth about his sin. So you see how there's a real moral component to all of this. Finally, Article 6, whether anything can be the object of universal hate. This is really interesting where Thomas goes with this, because he's going to talk about universals. He's going to talk about the senses and the intellect and how we come to know things, which is a big part of the Summa. He says there are two ways of speaking of the universal. First, as considered under the aspect of universality. Secondly, as considered in the nature to which it is ascribed. For it is one thing to consider the universal man, and another to consider a man as man. This almost sounds like, Platonic forms, where we have the form of man and then we have particular man down here. If therefore we take the universal in the first way, no sensitive power, whether of apprehension or of appetite, can attain the universal, because the universal is obtained by abstraction from individual matter on which every sensitive power is based. And so he's talking about our coming to know things. The senses know the individual, particular, the intellect abstracts the universal. Nevertheless, the sensitive powers, both of apprehension and of appetite, can tend to something universally. Accordingly, hatred in the sensitive faculty can regard something universally, because this thing, by reason of its common nature, and not merely as an individual, is hostile to the animal. For instance, a wolf in regard to a sheep. Hence, a sheep hates the wolf universally. Okay, they hate the very idea of a wolf. Okay, on the other hand, anger is always caused by something in particular, because it is caused by some action of the one who hurts us. So anger is particular. You're angry at a particular person or a particular thing. You're not angry at the universals. And actions proceed from individuals. For this reason, Aristotle says that anger is always directed to something in the singular, whereas hatred can be directed to a thing in general. Okay, you can't be angry at all cats, for example. You may be angry at this particular cat who just bit you or whatever, but you can hate all cats. All right, I don't know that you should do that, but you could hate something universally, but you can only be angry at something in particular, right? So I find that quite interesting. All right, well, that's going to do it for question 29 of Prima Secunda on hatred, and we will continue with question 30 tomorrow as we continue the Summa Theologia one question at a time. God bless you.